Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Nadia Massi. Here's what's coming up. 1 month since earthquakes and aftershocks devastated southern Turkey and northern Syria. We look at the situation for survivors 4 weeks on and the political fallout with elections scheduled in just 2 months' time. The mysterious poisonings of schoolgirls in Iran continues. New cases reported this past week as Ayatollah Khamenei says those responsible should face the death penalty. And is vertical farming the future in the Gulf? We take a trip around one site in Dubai that hopes to provide sustainable homegrown food in the region. First, this week marks 1 month since the ground shook under southern Turkey and northern Syria. The 7.8 magnitude earthquake and the subsequent aftershocks killed over 50,000 people, making it one of the deadliest quakes worldwide in the past century. Entire cities were flattened, millions of people made homeless. My colleague Brian Quinn looks at how survivors are coping 1 month on.
Just 6 kilometers from the epicenter of the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that rocked southern Turkey on February 6th, Nurda quickly became the site of dramatic rescues, mass graves, and tent cities. 1 month on, this town, once home to 40,000 people, is now turning to repurposed shipping containers to house the survivors.
We're putting in 1,700 residential containers here for families affected by the earthquake.
These are temporary shelters, but they're likely to stay here for several years. Given the scale of the damage, no one knows how long reconstruction might take. According to Turkey's disaster management agency, nearly 2 million people have left the affected area. The UN, though, says some 1.5 million remain in the zone without proper shelter. In the city of Antakya, now mostly destroyed, the head of the historic city center is living in a tent in the park.
So many people I knew are dead. I can't speak. I'll stay here. I'm not leaving.
More than 160,000 buildings in the quake zone are believed to have been either flattened or rendered uninhabitable. As rubble clearing efforts continue, attention has turned to an amnesty program for building code violations put in place by the Erdogan government, a policy many have blamed for encouraging shoddy construction practices that likely contributed to the devastation.
Well, Turkey then clearly still reeling from the earthquake. Nonetheless, though, the country is scheduled to go to the polls in just 2 months' time. There had been some speculation that President Recep Tayyip Erdogan would postpone the election, but his office has confirmed the vote is going ahead as planned. To discuss the political fallout of the quake then and its potential impact on the election, our Turkey correspondent, Jasper Mortimer, joins me now. And Jasper, Erdogan has led Turkey for the past 20 years, and this vote is perhaps his biggest test yet. How has the disaster affected his chances of being re-elected?
Well, opinion polls say he has lost some support, but not a lot. If there were to be elections today, the polls say his party would still finish first. However, I'm not sure that is the full story. You know, Erdogan made a long speech on television on Monday night, giving the details of all that his government is going to do to help the earthquake survivors. And it seemed to me that he knew his government's failures in the aftermath of the quake had cost him support, and he was trying to make up for that. But the election will be about more than the earthquake. It will be a referendum on Erdogan's handling of the economy, and it will also be a vote on whether the people trust the opposition. Do they think the opposition can run the country? As to the economy, inflation is officially 55%, but an independent think tank says it is 127%. Whichever figure is correct, the voters will know from the prices they've been paying if inflation is too high or not. Erdogan represents the underclass in a country where rule by the elite is widely resented, and he remains a force to be reckoned with. About 30% of the electorate vote for him whatever he does. But that is not enough to win. To win the election, he has to get the centrist voters. And the question is, do the centrist voters still trust him? In January, one of the most respected polling companies, Metropol, asked people whether they believed the opposition could run the country. 47% said yes, 48% said no. And this points to what the opposition has to do in the next 2 months. That is, convince the voters that it can do a better job.
Well, let's talk about the opposition then, Jasper. Just this week, they chose their candidate to challenge Erdogan for the presidency. Tell us who that candidate is and what chance you think they now have of unifying the opposition and defeating Erdogan.
Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu is the candidate. He's a retired civil servant from the finance ministry, and he's led the largest opposition party, the Republican People's Party, for the past 12 years. And he has managed to raise his party's share of the national vote by about 5%. But his party has always finished second to Erdogan's party, and for that reason, he is seen as a loser. A potential disadvantage is that he is Alawi, a subsect of Islam, and political analysts say that Erdogan may well hold that against him in the election campaign. Will he be able to unify the opposition? Yes, he has already shown that, but the opposition is not enough to win. He has to draw the voters in the centre, the swing voters. Opinion polls have only occasionally found that Kılıçdaroğlu could beat Erdogan in a presidential election. The same polls have consistently found that the mayor of Istanbul or the mayor of Ankara would beat Erdogan hands down. And this has led to the view that Kılıçdaroğlu should step aside and allow one of the mayors to challenge Erdogan.
All right, well, we'll see what happens. That election's scheduled for the 14th of May. Jasper Mortimer in Ankara, thanks very much indeed. In other news, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has spoken out for the first time this week amid a wave of mystery poisonings at girls' schools in the country. Hundreds of girls have become unwell since November, many of whom were taken to hospital. It's not clear who's behind the attacks, but some in Iran have speculated that the poisonings are revenge for girls participating in the protest movement that has swept the country since last autumn. Catherine Khadir-Clifford has this.
Schoolgirls on stretchers carried into the toxicology department of this hospital in the holy city of Mashhad. Yet more victims in the spate of suspected poisonings at girls' schools across Iran. In his first public reaction to the incidents, Iran's supreme leader said the culprits should be sentenced to death.
Intelligence bodies and police must pursue this and find the leads to this crime. The culprits must face the toughest of punishments, because this is not a small crime. This is a crime against the most innocent part of society, meaning children.
Authorities have logged suspected attacks at more than 50 schools across some 25 of Iran's 31 provinces since November. According to Iranian media, some 1,000 school children have now been affected. Iran's interior minister said that suspicious samples have been gathered in recent days. The incidents have triggered a wave of anger across the country, with demand rising for action from the authorities.
This kind of thing should not be allowed to happen to children in this day and age.
I'm calling on the government to act quickly to protect the lives of the next generation. All mothers in Iran are distressed over the poisonings.
The deputy health minister said the suspected attacks were aimed at shutting down education for girls. The cases come some 5 months after the start of protests, labelled riots by authorities, sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini, following her arrest for allegedly breaching Iran's strict dress code for women.
Now, in the Gulf, there's plenty of sun, but very little water. No surprise then that the UAE imports some 90% of its food. But could vertical farming be about to change all of that? Catherine Viette takes us around one such facility in Dubai.
In the Dubai desert, in the heart of the sand dunes, lies a massive facility. It's not a warehouse or a factory, but a farm. Inside, rows upon rows of leafy greens, a commodity more precious than gold in this region.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 27 rooms like this. In each room we have 21 racks.
The farm is growing Batavia lettuce and spinach, nourished by the nutrients in the water. No soil is used. White roots are a sign of good health.
Year-round, like continuous production without any break, without any cycle. There will be no winter, no summer. Continuously we can supply.
A simple tablet is used to control the lights which act as the plant's sun. Each plant can produce at least 2 harvests. The salads are fresh and tasty. Above all, they're guaranteed to be pesticide-free.
It is so clean that we advise people not to wash it and eat it as it is, because if it gets washed, any water that will be used could contain contaminants.
In a desert environment, conserving water is very important.
Conventional farming needs 317 liters of water to produce 1 kg of lettuce.
Here, each plant is irrigated by a system that uses only 15 liters of water per 1 kilo of lettuce, a result also helped by recycling water. The farming is entirely computerized, and for the company's director, represents the future of agriculture.
I think where we are at the moment in terms of global population, where we're going to be at 2050 in terms of a potential 10 billion people, in terms of the land requirement that we're going to need, in terms of the resources, then yeah, this is going to be, there's going to be more and more of these facilities that are going to be more urbanized.
At the moment, the farm runs on conventional energy, but plans to use solar power going forward. And while it uses less water, it still requires air conditioning, which may have an environmental impact.
When you have above 50 degrees outside, your cooling system are not efficient as other part of the year. So you are spending more energy to cool down. And this means extra cost. Is this cost covered by what you're producing is one issue, and then is the impact on the environment, is it wise?
The farm says being close to the city helps cut down on the carbon footprint from transportation and also results in less food spoilage.
And that report brings us to the end of the programme this week. Thanks for watching and do stay with us. There's much more world news still to come here on France 24.